Welcome back to the Sky News Daily, where once again we are talking about the royals. Well, very specifically, Harry and Meghan. We began 2023 with Harry's autobiography, obviously ghostwritten, Spare. We end it with yet another book from royal journalist Omid Scobie, this time entitled Endgame. You might be having some problems finding copies of it if you're in the Netherlands today. More on that in just a second. Our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock, is back in the studio with us. Tell us all. Omid Scobie's put pen to paper again, and it's causing a bit of a furore over the channel.
It is. And funnily enough, I've got the English book in front of me here. It isn't this version of the book that was causing any great explosions. In fact, when we read it for the first time, and you're like, oh, didn't contain the bombshells I thought it might.
Yeah, it had comments including Charles gets his butler to put toothpaste on his toothbrush, which I think I heard back in 1989.
Well, to expand on that, we then learnt that the toothbrush was held in a silver gilt toothbrush holder. That was the extra information. And we heard about the shoelaces being eyed. But look, apart from that, you brace yourselves, as I'm pretty certain the royal family would have done as well, for the kind of explosive content we've had before. And you read the book and think, well, that's the book. OK, we've learned a couple of little bits. I'd call them nuggets. I wouldn't call them hand grenades. So that's where we're at. Anyway, it turns out this book has not only been published in English, it has been published in other languages too, including Dutch. And the Dutch version has hastily been pulled from the shelves and we're told will be pulped because it is making a reference, and the reference goes right back to the Oprah Winfrey interview that Meghan and Harry gave in March 2021, where they made the statement that Meghan said she had heard conversations and concerns about the colour of Archie's skin colour.
Do you know what? Why don't we have a quick listen to the interview with Oprah Winfrey? Just remind ourselves as to exactly what was said back at the time.
So we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security. He's not going to be given a title. And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What? About how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Ooh.
That was relayed to me from Harry. Those were conversations that family had with him.
So that was the exchange at the time. Neither of them would be drawn on the names, either in that interview, subsequent interviews, or indeed in subsequent books that, you know,
That's
they
right.
had a hand in, including Harry's.
I mean, more than that, Harry explicitly saying he would never share that information. And then both since that interview, which, let's face it, that bit of the interview caused a furore, a massive crisis for the royal family.
And understandably so, let's be fair.
Because these are very serious allegations being levelled at an institution which has long faced criticism is out of touch, but this took it that one step further. And you know, think of everything that had been happening in the meantime. Sort of brought this to a huge head for the palace, caused a big problem, which is the understatement of the year. Anyway, since then, Harry and Meghan sort of rode back from the suggestion that what they were saying was racist or racism, that they were more implying that there was an unconscious bias within the household, the royal household and the royal family itself. So that's their version, as they've said it since. Fast forward to the book, this book here, Endgame, and there's a bit in question that is talking about the series of letters that were exchanged between Meghan and the King shortly after that interview was broadcast. And the English version of the book, and I've got it literally here, says these are private letters, so just bear that in mind, they were private letters. But in the pages of these private letters, two identities were revealed. The author then says, laws in the United Kingdom prevent me from reporting who they were.
And indeed, the laws prevent us from discussing what we have learned from the copy of the book that was released in the Netherlands.
Which does name names. And very clearly names names. And yeah, we've seen the names. We won't say the names, clearly.
We will say it involves a senior member of the royal family.
Which we knew anyway. And actually, you know, Team Sussex had already briefed journalists that it was somebody who wasn't the Queen and wasn't Prince Philip. But of course, that led to even more speculation as to who it was. So we knew who it wasn't, we just didn't know who it was. But it appears that somebody or some people have now been named in the Dutch copy, which is why the publishers are there. have said there's been a problem. We're taking these books off the shelf. You can't read it for now. We're putting this down to a translation error.
How does that happen?
I don't speak Dutch, okay?
Fair enough. But my point is, how does that which you read out to me just there get mistranslated into including a name or multiple names?
That is the big question, because clearly the author, Omid Scobie, by specifically saying laws in the United Kingdom prevent me from reporting who they were, knows full well that legally this is a sensitive issue, not just sensitive, but it's potentially libelous. So
only if it is untrue. I mean, he could quite happily name those names and take it to court and defend that claim. Let's be clear. A defence against libel or defamation is truth.
Is truth. So it's obvious that the lawyer has looked at this text, and that feels like a lawyer has put that sentence in, which begs the huge question: if lawyers are all over this book, why are they not all over every version of this book? How did it end up in a Dutch version? It seems so random, and so it seems suspicious.
Let's rewind then just for a second and remind everyone who on earth Omid Scobie is, because he did come out of nowhere for a lot of us.
So I first met Omid Scobie when I started this job, and it was
as royal
correspondent in the days before the Queen died. Harry and Meghan were in the UK for a couple of engagements. The very first thing he said to me was, "Everyone here," and we were surrounded by other royal correspondents and royal photographers, and it is a very close-knit team because you're on the same engagements the whole time. Omid Scobie said to me, "Everyone here thinks I'm a pal of Meghan's. That isn't true. They don't tell me anything more than anyone else here." And that was almost his opening gambit to me then. Now, I'm not questioning the truth of what he says, but what we do know,
others might,
because it is coming out in court and has come out in court, is that when he wrote his first book, Finding Freedom, talking about Meghan and Harry's departure from the UK overseas, initially it was said, no one has given him from within Team Sussex any information. But it then came out in court, because you have to tell the truth in court, that actually Meghan had given permission to her aides to brief Omid Scobie. So there is, I'm not saying it's a direct relationship, but there is a very close connection he has with the couple that certainly, and I know because I deal with exactly the same sort of people in terms of their team, that nobody else has. So there is a connection.
Okay, but okay, you do not have to be Sherlock Holmes to put a couple of things together here. Harry said in that Oprah interview, as you've already mentioned, that conversation, the conversation about who had made comments about Archie's skin colour after he was born, that conversation I am never going to share, right? There are three people in that conversation, frankly. One of them has released it, and I'm fairly certain it's not Buckingham Palace. On top of that, you just mentioned private letters, an exchange of private letters between, Meghan and the King. Again, someone has pumped those out into the public domain, passed them to via Omid Scobie. And again, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's not Buck House.
I would be very surprised. I would chew my own arm off if it was Buckingham Palace briefing out the names we were talking about. So, yeah, what you said there is absolutely correct. You don't have many dots to join to look, well, hang on. In this book, he's talking about pages of private letters. They were private until he got his hands on them and published them in his book. So he clearly knows, he's seen the letters for himself. Somebody has given him those letters.
And if he has been handed them by a party other than Meghan, surely, as a responsible journalist that Omid Scobie is, he would have gone and done his due diligence and approached them to find out the veracity of the letters, to make sure that they were indeed letters sent by her. He would have had to.
So then that led me to sort of approach, the Sussex's communications team and say, what is going on here? And to that, we have had a silence. Now, a silence doesn't mean anything necessarily, but you can look at that silence two ways. On the one hand, we also have silence from Buckingham Palace. There is no comment whatsoever coming out of the palace. Right. So you could say, well, maybe this is what Team Sussex is doing as well. But on the other hand, are they sitting back with that silence? And by not saying, weren't us, is that in itself a sign of something else here, that there was this connection, this relationship that led to them passing on names, passing on names within letters?
Well, if they wanted to distance themselves from the allegations that have been made in the Dutch copy of the book that is in front of you, they could quite easily do so, couldn't they? But just to turn it on its head, are you perhaps surprised that we haven't heard anything from Buckingham Palace on all of this, given the accusations of racism, which later became accusations of unconscious bias, the aide to the Queen who had to step away from her duties? You might remind us of that instant, Princess Michael wearing a blackamoor brooch to the first Christmas lunch that she ever had with Meghan. Their hands are not entirely clean here.
No, they know that. And it's an issue they're very aware of. Look, it was almost a year to the day that it was Lady Susan Hussey at an event at Buckingham Palace was sort of repeatedly asking a black guest there, where are you from? Where are you from? And we remember that very, very clearly. William and Kate were on the way to Boston, literally in the air when all this happened. Their spokesperson released a very strong statement, kind of condemning what had been said. And remember, this woman was Prince William's godmother, someone very, very close to the family. You remember all of that. So the issue of racism within the household, or attitudes like that within the household, has come under immense scrutiny. A huge amount. And it's something, we're told the king is incredibly sensitive to. Is he acting quick enough on any of it? That's another issue. But they know about this. And you're absolutely right. We've had several incidents, and that perhaps was the most recent and most high profile reason.
But just on that, you say we have been told, it has been let known that. I understand that the motto is never complain, never explain, but and the idea that we're going to get a sit-down interview a la Prince Andrew ever again is one for the birds. But at some point, don't they actually have to address these allegations directly? I just don't think never complain, never explain stands up as a PR strategy when it's coming to someone accusing the royal family, and again, we can't say who, but senior member of the royal family, of being a racist.
Yes. You remember when Prince William back then kind of came out, it was a Sky reporter who said to him, are you a racist family? He could feel the tension.
No, I haven't spoken to you yet, but I will do.
And can you just let me know, is the royal family a racist family, sir?
No, we're very much not a racist family.
Very much not a racist family, he said. We've had that. We obviously, at the time after the Oprah interview, was the statement that very carefully, some would say very cleverly worded, statement that came out.
Recollections may differ.
Some recollections may vary, yeah. But it also said, it did reflect on the seriousness of what had been said. But yeah, the recollections may vary, but it's the bit that sticks in your mind. So yeah, it is raising this issue once more. And it is weird because, I'll be really honest. I've read this book. I've read a lot of royal books recently. Obviously, we started the year, as I said, we were saying with Spare. Reading this one was actually, it all felt a bit old. It kind of didn't feel like there's anything new. And yet, here's a book that perhaps no one was being particularly kind about. Run up to Christmas, just been launched, and suddenly it's in all the headlines and there's a huge amount of publicity.
That sounds awfully close to a conspiracy theory, Laura, suggesting that this might, I don't know, be something of a PR exercise. But maybe you've got a point. I was going through, the key points from this book, such as they are, that King Charles III is a pampered monarch. Who'd have thought a monarch that is pampered? That William oft-times rejects the advice of his father, a son not listening to his dad, that's just blowing the roof off here, and that there is a rift between Harry and William, that two brothers might have fallen out. If those are the headlines out of this book, it does feel that perhaps we should be interrogating Mr. Scobie a bit more closely. What on earth is he saying about what is happening in the Netherlands?
Well, he isn't in the UK at the moment. We think he's in the US. He has spoken on...
Montecito, somewhere like that?
Just sitting down for a hike and a coffee. Look, he was speaking to a European broadcaster shortly after all this had come out. He took a step back and said, look, I never wrote two versions of the book. The English version is the version. I don't speak Dutch, he said, but there wasn't a version of my book that named names, and put it down to this translation error, which is what the Dutch publishers are saying. But Yes, a cynic in me would say, how handy, because you are now splashed on the front pages of several newspapers this morning. There's column coverage inside the papers as well, for a book that perhaps was destined to a pretty limp kind of review at the back page of the book section. So,
I mean, that paragraph that you just read there, where he complains about UK laws being the reason that he cannot name. I mean, there are other jurisdictions apart from the United Kingdom and the Netherlands. I'm thinking, for example, of the United States of America, where he would be protected under First Amendment rights.
So the US version, we have checked that one, and the US version, which we obviously can understand and read, it is, I don't know about the laws in the UK, but clearly that'll be different, but it doesn't name names either.
So he's bottled it.
So we don't know. We don't know what is going on. There's a lot that is confusing, and there is a lot that is suspicious about this.
So, simple question. Why do we care?
None of your questions are simple.
No. I get that. But why should we care, right? I thought the whole point of Harry and Meghan leaving this country was that they didn't want to be subjected to this never-ending merry-go-round of celebrity gossip. Of course, the place that they head to is California, but that's a podcast for another time. Why should we be caring about this? You know, they are no longer working members of the royal family. I suppose perhaps the one area in which he may well have had a point, Omid Scobie, is when he says that the monarchy is in a fight for survival right now. Now, we can disagree as to the extent of the nature of that fight, but there is an existential crisis air around the House of Windsor right now.
We know that it is struggling, and its battle is making itself relevant. So we know that already. We don't need Omid Scobie in 400 pages to tell us that. Why do we need to care about this? Look, I think a lot of people won't care, especially when it comes to Harry and Meghan. It is a Marmite subject, basically. So Harry and Meghan have their fans. And remember, Harry and Meghan come out of this book completely unscathed. So this is, he might not have spoken directly, but this is very much on their side. A lot of people will read this and think, yes, I get it with them. And the royal family, it was a loss not having them. It's awful. They've had this issue, these problems. They've gone very quiet, though, remember. Because, we had, obviously, the Netflix series Spare, all the interviews Harry gave right at the end of at the start of this year. Then Meghan, we have heard nothing from.
I mean, what do they do these days? Apart from turn up to ice hockey?
Their challenge is carving out some sort of meaningful role for them. They say they want to be authentic. They want to be a global, promote global philanthropy, but they haven't quite found the right conduits to do that. They needed to make money, basically, so they signed all these deals, and we all know how some of the people who signed up their deals felt about them, with the grifters' comments and all that sort of thing. So they know it's not gone great for them, which is why everyone assumed, apart from Harry's fight with the British tabloid press, everyone assumed they were just sort of quietly getting on with it in the background. There'd be a few announcements and then they'd get on with it. This feels like it's just blown everything that was from, 2 years ago back up again. The royal family aren't going to be very happy about this. And there'd been a lot of talk about, Harry had tried to get in touch with the king at the king's 75th birthday. They didn't see each other, but he'd sent a little message from the kids, a video message, that the kind of thing parents do with long distance relationships with grandparents and stuff. And you kind of felt a bit of a softening in the language, and now who knows where they're at. If you care about the royal family and the Harry, Meghan, William, Kate, Fab Four thing, and I appreciate that not everyone cares about this, but there's nothing more than royal loyalists would love to see everyone reunited. Back at Sandringham, it's glorious. We're all friends again.
Chances than that?
Well, ultra slim this year. I will be there, and I can get my binoculars up. I can tell you what I will see, and it will not be Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet, I'm sure. But maybe some way down the line. Has this just set it back a bit? Possibly, but it depends if the Sussexes say anything or if their silence continues.
Well, we will see. Laura, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. And that is it for this edition of the Sky News Daily. We will be back again, same time tomorrow.